WNBA legend Lisa Leslie just spoke out with surprising clarity on the Caitlin Clark television controversy. When asked about the Indiana Fever dominating the national TV schedule with a staggering 41 out of 44 games, Leslie's response left everyone talking. Her powerful perspective completely flips the script and reveals why some of the biggest names in women's basketball history view the situation entirely differently than today's critics. The numbers are impossible to ignore. The Indiana Fever will appear on national television for 41 of their 44 regular season games, an unprecedented level of exposure for any WNBA team. This announcement has sparked heated debates across social media, with some crying favoritism, while others celebrate the increased visibility for the league. But when USA Today recently posed this controversial question to four-time Olympic gold medalist and WNBA legend Lisa Leslie, her response wasn't what many expected. She didn't join the chorus of critics or show the slightest hint of resentment. Instead, she delivered a masterclass in perspective that perfectly captures why the legends of women's basketball approach this situation so differently than some of today's voices. It's marketing, and we cannot deny what Caitlin Clark has done for the women's game. I'm not going to act like it's something that we don't see. She's had a huge effect. Call it the Caitlin Clark effect. Yes, have we ever had teams have to get into larger arenas to play against a team? No, we have not. So if we have more eyeballs on the game and Caitlin Clark brings that, why would we feel some kind of way because she has more television games? I think we have to understand that when one player eats, we all eat, and as we all get more opportunities, it just opens it up for everyone else. And I think Caitlin has said that even herself in certain interviews, and I love that. I love that she's not the player who's like, it's all about her. It's not. She's giving love and homage to those of us that have come before her. She shares a wealth with her teammates, and she doesn't have to do that. So I just don't, again, I don't know what the big deal is about the fact that Caitlin is getting a lot of love. She deserves that, and she's helped change this game just as a lot of other players have. But it is what it is, and I think that we are all benefiting from. I think it's all about money, marketing, and we cannot deny what Caitlin Clark has done for the women's game. Leslie stated firmly, "I'm not going to act like it's something that we don't see." This straightforward acknowledgement cuts through the noise that's dominated WNBA discourse since Clark's arrival. Was National Player of the Year, won all of the individual awards, but sometimes, it's very hard to win a national championship, regardless of how much people talk about it like, oh, you have to have it. It is one of the hardest things to do in a tournament where you have so many games and you're trying to get there. So, yeah, shout out to all of the players who were able to win national championships, but it doesn't make a player who didn't win a national championship any less of an amazing individual player. And the possibility of being the talks of Leslie, who experienced the league's earliest struggles firsthand as one of its founding superstars, recognizes something that seems to escape many current observers. This level of attention is unprecedented and worth embracing. Have we ever had teams have to get into larger arenas to play against a team? No, we have not, Leslie pointed out, referencing the numerous venue changes across the league to accommodate the massive crowds for Fever games. This simple observation speaks volumes. Leslie isn't viewing Clark's impact through the lens of jealousy or insecurity. She's measuring it against historical reality, something she has unique authority to do as someone who was there from the beginning. What makes Leslie's perspective particularly valuable is that she approaches this from the vantage point of someone who had to build the league with far less support and recognition. When Leslie was dominating the WNBA in its early years, players fought for basic media coverage. They competed in smaller arenas, often with minimal broadcast presence, laying the groundwork for today's opportunities through sheer excellence and perseverance. Given that history, one might expect Leslie to express frustration about the attention Clark received so early in her career. Instead, she offers wisdom that demonstrates why the pioneers of women's basketball often sound so different from some current voices. When one player eats, we all eat, Leslie explained. As we all get more opportunities, it just opens it up for everyone else. This philosophy represents a fundamental divide in how people view Clark's prominence. While some see the attention as a zero-sum game where Clark's visibility means less spotlight for others, Leslie recognizes the expansive potential. More viewers mean more revenue. More revenue means better contracts. Better contracts mean improved conditions for all players. Leslie specifically praised Clark's approach to her position in the spotlight. "I love that she's not the player who's like it's all about her. This acknowledgement speaks to something that's often overlooked in discussions about Clark, her consistent efforts to deflect attention to teammates and the broader women's game. Despite the media frenzy, Clark has repeatedly emphasized that she's just one player in a league full of incredible talent. I just don't know what the big deal is about the fact that Caitlin is getting a lot of love, Leslie continued. She deserves that, and she's helped change the game just as a lot of other players have. This statement highlights another key difference in perspective. Leslie doesn't view recognition as something to be equally distributed regardless of impact. She acknowledges the reality that different players contribute differently to the game's growth, and the attention they receive often reflects this. What's particularly striking about Leslie's comments is how they differ from the narrative pushed by some media outlets. Rather than framing Clark's popularity as divisive or unfair, Leslie sees it as something positive for everyone involved. I think that we are all benefiting from the effects that she's had on the game, Leslie said. I just appreciate the way she shows up. Leslie then listed Clark's attributes that deserve recognition. She's a competitor, she's a trash talker, she makes players around her better, she's exciting to watch. These observations come from basketball knowledge, not marketing hype. Leslie, a Hall of Famer who understands the game at its highest level, is evaluating Clark as a player first, recognizing the substance behind the attention. This basketball-centered approach continues as Leslie makes clear she's not just a Clark supporter but a fan of the entire WNBA. I miss seeing a Ja Wilson out there. She's to me still one of the best players in the world, Leslie noted, also praising Breanna Stewart as in the talk being one of the best players in the world. By mentioning these established stars, Leslie demonstrates that appreciating Clark doesn't mean diminishing others. It's possible and in fact necessary to recognize multiple forms of excellence simultaneously. Leslie then addressed the core complaint head-on, the disparity in televised games between the Fever and other teams. Are we going to get upset about 5, 6, 10 games less on television or not? I don't think we should, she stated. We have access to find these games now in a way that we've never had before, and we have to appreciate that. This perspective reveals a generational difference in how WNBA visibility is perceived. For pioneers like Leslie, who played when finding women's basketball on television was nearly impossible, today's multi-platform availability represents incredible progress. A few games difference in national TV scheduling seems minor compared to the overall growth and accessibility. I am so thankful for her, Leslie said of Clark. I'm thankful for all of these women and where this game is, and we have to step back and see the big picture and how it's impacting all of us. This call to see the big picture perfectly encapsulates the wisdom Leslie brings to this conversation. As someone who helped build the WNBA from its foundation, she understands that the league's growth has never been linear or perfectly equal. Different eras have had different catalysts, different stars and different opportunities. What makes Leslie's perspective particularly valuable is that it represents a viewpoint shared by many of the WNBA's founding generation, yet rarely highlighted in current media coverage. Legends like Cheryl Swoops, Cynthia Cooper and Nancy Lieberman have similarly expressed appreciation for Clark's impact rather than resentment. This generational divide isn't coincidental. The pioneers of women's basketball faced challenges that today's players often don't, playing for minimal salaries, working second jobs, competing in near-empty arenas, and fighting for the most basic media recognition. Having experienced those struggles, they tend to view any development that brings more attention and resources to women's basketball as positive. Their perspective also reflects a different era in professional sports culture. The early WNBA wasn't without competition or rivalries, but it was united by a common mission, proving women's basketball deserved to exist as a professional enterprise. This created a sense of collective purpose that sometimes seems less evident today. It was just a different spirit, notes one longtime WNBA observer. Comparing the league's early years to some of today's more contentious dynamics, there was fierce competition on the court, but also a recognition that everyone was building something bigger together. This isn't to romanticize the past or suggest today's players don't care about the league's success, but social media, increased financial stakes, and the league's growth have created different pressures and incentives. The context has changed, and with it some of the discourse. What's particularly noteworthy about Leslie's comments is how they cut through the artificial narratives, often imposed on the Clark situation. Media outlets frequently framed Clark's popularity as a source of tension or resentment, creating storylines about Clark versus the establishment that oversimplify complex realities. Leslie refuses to play into these divisive frameworks. Instead, she offers a nuanced perspective that acknowledges Clark's unique impact while celebrating the league's overall talent. This balanced view is refreshing in a conversation often dominated by extreme positions. Listen, she's a competitor, she's a trash talker, she makes players around her better, she's exciting to watch, Leslie noted, focusing on basketball attributes rather than cultural lightning rods. This basketball-centered evaluation is something many current discussions lack. Too often, conversations about Clark become proxies for broader cultural debates, obscuring the actual game and its development. Leslie's comments also highlight an important point about visibility in women's sports. When she says when one player eats, we all eat, she's acknowledging a fundamental reality. Attention is not equally distributed in sports, nor has it ever been. Star players have always received disproportionate coverage, from Cheryl Miller to Lisa Leslie herself, from Sue Bird to Aja Wilson. What makes Clark's situation unique isn't that she receives more attention than other players, it's the magnitude of that attention and its timing early in her career, but the principle remains the same. Star power drives interest, and interest drives growth. This understanding informs Leslie's practical approach to the TV schedule disparity. Are we gonna get upset about 5, 6, 10 games less on television or not? I don't think we should, she advised, focusing on the overall growth rather than relative differences. This pragmatic perspective comes from someone who played many games that weren't televised at all. For Leslie and her contemporaries, the fact that WNBA games are readily available across multiple platforms represents tremendous progress. Regardless of which specific matchups get the network spotlight, we have access to find these games now in a way that we've never had before, and we have to appreciate that, and all these platforms that support the W. Leslie noted, highlighting how dramatically the media landscape has changed since her playing days. When Leslie played, finding women's basketball often meant searching through newspaper TV listings and hoping a game might be broadcast. Today, with lead pass options, streaming services and social media highlights, fans can follow any team or player with unprecedented ease. This evolution in accessibility changes the significance of national TV appearances. While prime network slots still matter for exposure and prestige, they're no longer the only way for fans to connect with teams and players. The Fever having more ESPN games doesn't prevent fans from watching and supporting other teams. Leslie's comments also address an often overlooked aspect of Clark's impact, its potential longevity. We have to step back and see the big picture and how it's impacting all of us, she advised, suggesting the benefits will extend beyond just this season or Clark's individual career. This big picture perspective recognizes that moments of heightened visibility can create lasting change. The attention Clark brings today may lead to new fans who stay with the league for decades, media partnerships that extend beyond her career, and financial structures that benefit future generations of players. History supports this view. The 1996 Olympic team's popularity helped launch the WNBA. Candace Parker's arrival brought new viewers who stayed to appreciate other stars. Maya Moore's excellence elevated the league's profile. Each generation has had catalysts who expanded the audience beyond themselves. What makes Leslie's take particularly significant is that it comes from someone who was herself a transformative figure in women's basketball. As a pioneer who helped establish the WNBA's legitimacy, Leslie understands the role of breakthrough moments and personalities in the sport's evolution. I think we have to understand that when one player eats, we all eat, Leslie reiterated, capturing the collective impact of individual stardom. This philosophy reflects the reality that women's sports growth has never been perfectly equitable. Progress often comes through specific moments, teams and individuals that capture broader attention. The challenge isn't eliminating these spotlights, but ensuring they illuminate the broader landscape. Leslie's perspective also highlights a generational wisdom that's sometimes missing from current discourse. As someone who experienced the WNBA's early struggles, she recognizes the importance of seizing opportunities for growth, even when imperfect or unevenly distributed. We have to step back and see the big picture, she advised, encouraging a longer view of the league's development, rather than focusing on immediate comparisons or perceived slights. This patience comes from having witnessed the WNBA's gradual evolution from a fledgling league fighting for existence to today's more established enterprise. Progress hasn't always been straight line, and moments of breakthrough haven't always been perfectly fair to all involved. What's particularly striking about Leslie's comments is their authenticity. Unlike some takes that feel calculated to generate engagement or controversy, her perspective comes across as genuinely held and thoughtfully considered. She's not positioning herself within a predefined narrative, but offering honest reflection based on extensive experience. This authenticity is reinforced by her balanced approach to praising talent across the league. While acknowledging Clark's impact, Leslie makes a point to highlight Aja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and others as outstanding talents deserving recognition. Her appreciation isn't exclusive but expansive. I think the competition is there, Leslie noted. You gotta go out there and prove yourselves. This last point is crucial. Leslie doesn't suggest that attention should be divorced from performance. She recognizes that Clark has earned her spotlight through skill and impact, while also acknowledging that other players continue to prove themselves at the highest level. Excellence remains the standard, even as visibility varies. Leslie's mature perspective stands in contrast to some more reactionary takes that frame Clark's popularity as either an unjustified media creation or as the sole future of women's basketball. Instead, she places Clark within the ongoing evolution of women's basketball, significant but connected to what came before and what will follow. I'm thankful for all of these women and where this game is, Leslie said, extending appreciation beyond any individual player to the collective progress of women's basketball. This gratitude reflects someone who understands how far women's basketball has come and doesn't take its current prominence for granted. Having played when WNBA's future was uncertain, Leslie recognizes that today's issues, like TV schedule disparities, represent challenges of growth rather than existential threats. Leslie's candid take on Caitlin Clark isn't just another opinion, it's a masterclass in seeing the bigger picture from someone who built this league from the ground up. While others debate TV schedules, Leslie recognizes what truly matters: growth benefits everyone. Want more unfiltered perspectives from the legends who shaped women's basketball?